Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You know the drill. We're retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and this guy right over here, my partner in crime, Ed Wallace. When we go live or upload another video. Tonight, we're going to talk about why Bryan Kohberger had to plead guilty. The science doesn't lie. I believe that his attorney ran out of appeals and ran out of crushing decisions handed down by Judge Hepler. And I think it was the cards were dealt to him, and it was his only choice. Ed, I wanted to just say quickly, we thank our moderators, the replay viewers, the Patreon supporters, and everyone who continually supports us. We took about a good 2-week break, so I thank you guys for all coming here and watching either on the replay or live. But Ed, your thoughts on that? You know what we're going to talk about tonight. The science doesn't lie. You say this all the time. We have merch that says it on shirts and stuff like that. Your thoughts as it pertains to Bryan Kohberger pleading guilty to all 4 murders?
Well, with all the filings, his defense attorneys have put forth, all the arguments that they made, all the hearings they had, all was for naught. Okay, they tried the spaghetti against the wall. Nothing stuck to the wall. Okay, so they were at the end of their rope, and that's why they came forward to the prosecutor and asked the prosecutor for this deal.
Yeah, and we know from covering this case so extensively, Othram Labs in Texas, they're in the woodlands north of Houston. They have an unbelievable state-of-the-art facility that worked on not only this case, but many others. Rex Heuermann, the Long Island serial killer, Gilgo Beach murderer, Rex Heuermann, and many, many others where they were 40 and 40 some odd year old cases, and they were able to solve it using their, as they call it, it's not like exclusive, but there's nowhere else in the United States that has a facility like this and that are utilizing the methods that they use. Ed, how important is that in solving not only cold cases, but stopping future mass murderers or repeat offenders?
It's huge because they started off slow and steady, getting hits, and they're perfecting their processes. It's proprietary. They own the processes, and they were testing them and tweaking them, and they started off where they would maybe do get one hit in a month. Then they were getting multiple hits in a month, and then they were getting multiple hits in a week, and they were solving more and more cases more rapidly. And it appears they had an expansion of the lab, and they had to hire more people. And it just goes to show you too that some of the turnaround times that they were hitting were phenomenal. Like hours, 2 hours, boom, they had a profile.
Right.
Okay. And they were ready to upload it into the system to start searching the familiar databases. So it's unbelievable, the success that they've had. And it's just, the frontier of this. They're just scratching the surface here, in my opinion. There's so much more we can do with DNA, especially unknown DNA with nobody in CODIS to match it to, or nothing like that. Then, I mean, we can get into eye color, hair color. We can get into race. We can get into all sorts of things. But currently, right now, we're not doing that.
Right.
But it can be done.
The husband and wife team who started Othram Labs, they talked at CrimeCon. She talked at CrimeCon, and she made a reference to solving up to 5. Or not solving, but coming up with 5 profiles a day in some of these cold cases from across the country. That's phenomenal. And I want to play a little piece from some of the local news. This is a Texas station, and they cover a lot of cold cases. They cover a lot of crimes, but they also do have an extensive video database of what Othram Labs has been doing since 2018. That's when they started.
Crime.
KPRC2's Zach Lashway brings us back to Othram, a forensic lab purposefully built to identify victims and perpetrators from crime scenes.
A mother's murder, still a mystery after more than 4 decades.
All 3 of them were shot execution style in the back of the head.
Helen Ivy Maldonado and her sister, Sarah Ivy Edwards,
And we want to know what happened to our mom.
are the youngest of Frances Ivy's children. Ivy and her 2 colleagues, Joanne Brown and Elizabeth Shoemate, 3 realtors, were murdered inside their West Houston real estate office on August 19th, 1983.
Why hasn't this case been solved? Does evidence exist in the case?
Oh yeah. There was evidence, or is evidence. The last we heard from HPD, they had it sent to the National DNA Lab in Florida, and they have a profile, a male profile.
All we do is build infrastructure and technology to help identify victims from crimes or perpetrators from crimes from DNA evidence that previously couldn't be used.
Othram, headquartered in the Woodlands, opened in 2018. At that time, a team of 4 people started solving murder mysteries. A few hits a month turned into several solves a week. Today, Othram cracks multiple cases a day.
We've been able to solve contemporary cases in a matter of 2 days and get that perpetrator off the street in a couple days so that they can't commit the next crime. There are still law enforcement departments in this country, many, that don't even know this is a possibility.
Middleman notes cost and lack of success metrics are barriers.
If you went to a doctor and they had a cancer treatment that worked 2% of the time or one that worked 98% of the time, and they chose to use the 2% of the time on you, but the 98% of the time on someone else, that would be malpractice.
Can you talk about the role, if any role, Othram has played in major cases across the country, such as the college students killed in Idaho?
Yes, we have played key roles in many of these high-profile contemporary cases.
I want to stop it here because he asked her a question. This was 5 months ago. Bryan Kohberger did not plead guilty yet, but the gag order was lifted. So they were able to talk a little bit, but she didn't go into any specifics. She kept her silence and granted that gag order because it's not just a matter of her business and the reputation of Othram Labs. It's also a matter of serving the victims' families. And that's what makes this such a professional operation. They're not talking to anybody about the case. I reached out to her about 2 years ago and asked her for an interview. And once she heard that I wanted to speak about Bryan Kohberger and the Idaho 4 murders, she said she couldn't talk about it because they were involved in it. And kudos to this reporter for asking her about the cases or about international or national cases, well-known cases. I thought this was a great interview, and that's why I chose to play it here.
Some are already announced and some aren't.
Is
These high-profile contemporary cases, some are already announced and some aren't.
Is Othram investigating John Benet Ramsey's murder?
So I can't confirm or deny working on any case prior to law enforcement announcing that. But that is a case that could benefit from this technology.
Can you confirm you're working with local law enforcement agencies that you weren't working with before?
I think I can say that Houston Police Department is now working with Othram on some of these cases.
As the loved one of a victim of a cold case, you, along with many others, know better than anybody about the advancements in DNA technology.
My sister Sarah and I have talked to you many times, Zach, and we want it to go to Othram. We believe that if it's in Othram's hands, it will get solved.
And that speaks volumes right there. And that's coming from a victim's family. High impact, but also the work that they're doing is phenomenal. Ed, What did Othram's role? What was their role in identifying Bryan Kohberger? We know that Sergeant Baker from the Moscow Police Department on 11/22 got on an airplane. He went to the Idaho State Crime Lab. He picked up, and this is from this is from all the released documents and reports. He went to the Idaho State Crime Lab on the 22nd. These quadruple murders happened on the 13th. Sergeant Baker went to the Idaho State Crime Lab, picked up the DNA profile, and I want you to explain what a DNA profile it is, from the Idaho State Crime Lab, and flew all the way to Othram Labs in Texas. Can you tell our audience what that entails and what he actually picked up? Was it the knife sheath? What was it, Ed, that he picked up and brought to them?
No, he pulled the lab pulled the sample off the knife sheath, the swabbing off the knife. The swabbing contained the sample. It was extracted, amplified, and an STR process went through, and a profile was obtained. Single source male profile was obtained. So he took that profile down to Othram Labs and gave them that profile. And I do like when they were at CrimeCon, the interview they gave there, when they were explaining, because everybody, when we did multiple shows on this, and there was all the pro burgers that were yelling at us, it's just touch DNA, it's just trace amounts. It wasn't trace amounts. Not at all. According to what she was telling us, it was not trace amounts. She said there was tons of genetic material to obtain a profile from the source, the swabbing of the buckle to the sheath. So, that, to me, that should have dispelled that entire myth that it was just trace amounts of the genetic material present.
And people went on and on about it. And
oh my God, they were attacking me. They weren't listening to what I was saying.
Yeah,
it's touch. You can't trust it. You can't trust it.
And Kristen Mittman, she got on the stage with Brian Enton alongside Stacy Chapin, and said, "Look, the information that the news." It was almost a little cringe, but she called it out. She said, "The news." Not meaning Brian Enton, but meaning everybody that was in the news, the people online speculating. She called out TikTok and some of the social media platforms, and she basically said everybody had it wrong. So, yeah, be better, channel member. She stayed here. Oh no, what's happening, Ed? What is happening?
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
Oh boy. All right. Calm down, Sparky. But yeah, Bag Boys is legendary. So Sergeant Baker flew with the DNA profile in I believe it was described as a not refrigerated, but a thermal knapsack. He took it through customs. We read this out when those documents became available. He brought and hand delivered that profile, that DNA profile, to a Othram Labs employee, who then did what with it, Ed? Listen, we're going to spell out about the science doesn't lie. What did they do?
They looked at the profile and then they then did some additional extraction and amplification, and then adjusted the profile to meet the requirements to do familiar DNA searches in several of the genetic DNA databases that are out there that allow for law enforcement searches in addition to their own. They said they use 3 different databases,
Right.
2 of which we knew, private databases, and then their own database, which I did not know that they had.
The DNAsolves.com. We'll show that in a little bit. By a show of hands in the chat, does anybody want us to play a little bit of the interview? I have it queued up. It is very noisy because it was at CrimeCon. Kristen did us a favor and speed up the audio, but on Kristen's version, it switches from ear to ear. So I don't know. Do you guys want to hear the clean version audio? it's not perfect, but it gets all the background out? Or do you want to hear the raw audio with the background noise? Put a 1 in the chat if you want to hear the cleaned up version from Kristen. Put a 2 in the chat. You just want to hear it straight out through News Nation. I'll let the audience pick. So yeah, I think a lot of people want the edited version, so I'm going to go to that.
To know that you have information that can...
That's actually not too bad. The edited, but let me grab it real quick. Here we go. Speculation. Okay, so this is from Brian Enton's page.
Hey guys, so I just finished a conversation with Stacy Chapin, who is
Brian. Give me a second. All right, so here's Stacy Chapin with her son Ethan. We know Ethan was one of the 4 murdered college students: Xana Knodel, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez. So let's move forward to the interview, and you guys let me know what the sound, if it's good like this. I listened back to it and it was going from ear to ear, so it was getting a little annoying for me, but let's listen to it. This is courtesy of Kristen, so thank you for taking the time to do this.
to get off my chest, like how much you've inspired so many people who have been following this case, me included. Just the way you've handled, the way your family has handled all of this with such class and dignity. And I think you have inspired a lot of people who are going through things and that they can kind of get out on the other side. And now partnering or working with Othram, it seems like you're kind of entering sort of in a way like the next chapter.
I don't disagree with that, actually. It feels like a very natural transition, I guess. I didn't know where it was all going to end or begin or how it was ever going to play out. But it made perfect sense when it, you know, when the gag order was lifted and we could have a conversation. It made perfect sense. Because we're a face, we're a victim. We have been, you know, Othram is involved in our case. And so it's just, yeah, it makes sense, right? And thank you. I mean, we've tried to take the high road through our case, through the entire, you know, it's been it'll be 3 years in November, obviously, but.
You just said that Stacy and the way that she handled this inspired you. I have this question all the time from people. How do you do the job that you do, see such evil and not be affected by it? And I have to say that I do. I see some really terrible things and some really terrible parts of humanity, but then I also see pure light. And I feel like Stacy is one of those people that went through the worst of what society can give you, the unimaginable. I can't imagine going through what Stacy went through. And instead of letting that define her, she's actually turned the worst experience of her life into light. And she wants to give back to the world in a positive way and advocate for justice and fairness for everyone, advocate that technology is used in real time. That means a lot to me.
And it's the most advanced technology, forensic DNA technology in the world. I'm not the scientist, but I've been on the receiving end of having them not only, you know, work on our case, but there was a comfort there. I mean, and that's part of the story we'll tell tomorrow is that, you know, we met by chance and I had some knowledge throughout our case of what the Middlemans were doing. And I relied on that. Jim and I relied on that in our darkest moments. I didn't know anything, you know, that I wasn't supposed to know, but it was a blessing, and victims' families should have the right to that information if they're going through the same thing we are. I mean, inevitably, there's going to be families that are in the same position we are.
Yeah, I guess there would have been a lot more certainty had it been explained.
It's definitive information. There was so much, you know, so much speculation. There still is. It's shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's science.
It's scientific.
Yeah, there's no speculation.
I mean, if you knew definitively that knife sheath was without a shadow of doubt, which is the case, now that it's all said and done, it would have been different going through. You would have relied on, you kind of went, okay, maybe we don't need to worry as much as we need to worry.
Yeah, and there was one advanced forensic test performed. There was one profile. There was so much speculation out there about multiple profiles, incongruent information. There is only one lab that is doing this type of DNA technology that tested that DNA, and it's ours. And I couldn't come forward and say, no, this is definitive.
Right.
There is one profile with these matches that led to this conclusion that pointed directly to Bryan Kohberger's family, right? That none of that could be said before. And that was very frustrating. And to not be able to tell the family or to talk about it. The law enforcement agents that worked this case couldn't talk about it. No one that had any information could correct the record.
Right.
And so what ended up happening is everyone tried to figure out, why was this information not out there? What was missing? What was the missing component? And came up with a whole bunch of speculations that led to uncertainty. And that uncertainty continued to grow. And I think that was the most difficult on the victim's family.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
And no one else, right? Like, I was certain the entire time because I saw the science. I knew the results, right? I never had one doubt in my mind that we'd be sitting here today, whenever today was, whether it's after the trial, before the trial, at a plea. I knew that this day was going to come. But the victims' families didn't have that certainty. I don't even know if law enforcement involved in the case had that certainty. I don't know how far the results actually propagated as the full result of the investigation, because everything was kept so under wraps.
Yeah.
And I think that
that's the thing too, is like, people don't understand is that holding stuff like this under wraps until a trial commences is very, very important. If it's blabbed out to the media or blabbed out through law enforcement, it's a defense attorney's dream. I was going to say something bad. It was a defense attorney's dream to have that happen, because then they can fight it. They can refute it. We saw what Ann Taylor did the whole entire time.
Oh, yeah. She made motion after motion. She had Daubert hearings. She had Fry hearings. She tried to attack the S&P, the SNP DNA, saying that it wasn't scientifically accepted in the community, which it is. Okay. Singular nucleotide polymorphism is accepted by the scientific community to identify people. So I didn't understand. Like I said, she was throwing spaghetti at the wall and nothing was sticking. And then when all of her filings failed with this judge, then she came to the realization that her client was probably going to lose if they went to trial and could get the death penalty. So she approached the prosecutor and said, hey, we'll take a deal.
Yeah. Or will you offer me a deal? They can't say, give us a deal. They just,
well, I mean, they can make an application. They could.
They just went to him and said, hey, if our client pleads guilty, will you take the death penalty off the
exactly?
And that's what happened. That was the quick. As Bill Thompson released in a press release, he was interviewed. He said that this happened fast. They didn't have time to even call the families or meet with them in person, which was shitty in my opinion. But that's, again, you can't go back and change what happened. This is what happened.
Yeah, it still irks me to no end. Bill Thompson's press release that he stated that how could you trust him to tell you the truth? Well, you make a proffer and you say to him, okay, show us where you ditched the knife. And if we don't find the knife where you said you ditched it, or your clothing or whatever, if we don't find it, then the deal is off.
Right. But he didn't even do that. He didn't even try that. Hey, Ed, I want to switch gears quickly with you. We always say, and it's in the title here, that Bryan Kohberger had no other choice but to plead guilty because the science doesn't lie. Can you just talk to our audience that may or may not have any experience as it pertains to DNA? You worked in the New York City Medical Examiner's DNA lab. Can this stuff be fudged or fiddled with? Is it either black and white? What, what is it?
Well, listen, with this stuff, the protocols and the procedures on how to extract, amplify, and then develop the genetic profile, this is all standardized. Okay. And anytime you're going to do something like that, the defense experts are going to have their chance at looking at exactly what you did, your protocols, your procedures, the training of the analyst, certifications of the analyst, and everything they did. Okay. So if there is a problem anywhere in there, we would have known about it, and there would be hearings on it and suppressing hearings and all kinds of things like that. And even though she did try that here, okay, they didn't want certain words used,
Yeah, couldn't use psycho, couldn't.
Yeah.
All
But even with the DNA, they didn't want certain words used with the DNA profile. But so it's either there or it isn't there. You either have enough genetic materials to get a profile, and then that profile then becomes suitable for analysis. Okay, then the findings are going to be this person is 101 million, to 1 as being the source of this genetic material. Okay.
Right.
And then, or they'll say something to the effect, like when it's weaker, they cannot be excluded as the source of this DNA. Okay. Especially with mixtures. Okay. But this wasn't a mixture. This was one individual, one male contributor. Okay. All right. So as they say on the I Love Lucy, so Lucy, you got some explaining to do. Okay.
Exactly.
He can't explain how that DNA got on that sheath. He can't. And then knowing his purchases, his history of his purchases, Amazon purchase of the knife, the sheath, and the sharpening stone. I mean, it's all there. It was a huge, circumstantial case. Then you had the electronic evidence. You had the electronic forensics, the digital forensics. I mean, it was just a mountain of evidence that just fell on him. Okay. And he could not get out from underneath it. No matter what trick they tried, no matter what motion they made in court with the judges, he just couldn't do it. And then even then the last minute Hail Mary, I believe, was the alternative suspect theory, and the judge just like, boom, shot that right down and said, this is all speculation. You got no evidence. You got no evidence that these people that you're accusing here did anything.
There was so many layers of evidence. You talk about the circumstantial, you talk about the forensic electronic evidence, you talk about his purchase histories, you talk about cell phone and the data, the computer for crimes and the forensics that went into this. And then you look at Othram Labs and what they did. There was just Ann Taylor, kudos to her. She did everything in her power to try to get everything that would be damning to her client thrown out, and it all didn't work.
Well, that's her job.
Yeah, it's her job, and she did her job. I want to just play the rest of this little segment. It's only another 2.5 minutes, because she talks about what made the knife sheath DNA so definitive. So let's go back to this again. This is kudos to Kristen for cleaning up the audio. If you listen to this on Brian Enton's channel, a lot of noise, and you have to run it through a program. It's not a perfect thing. We're not audio technology technicians, but Kristen did the best that she could with it, and I think she did a damn good job. So kudos to Kristen. Thank you to everyone who's here. Thank you to the replay viewers. Thank you to our mod squad. We love you. We definitely missed you guys when we were taking a break. Well, it was me that was taking a break. So we're back, and I'm happy to be here with you guys tonight. So let's take a listen.
The results actually propagated as the full result of the investigation because everything was kept so under wraps.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to change. Stacy's right. This technology is superior to traditional DNA testing. Traditional DNA testing looks at 20 markers and is there to confirm identity. It was purpose-built in the 90s to help confirm someone's identity or connect someone to multiple crimes if they're a serial perpetrator. Our technology takes place much earlier in an investigation. We can infer someone's identity because we're looking at hundreds of thousands of markers, almost 1 million markers every time we build one of these DNA profiles. So we can infer identity by looking at sixth cousins, fifth cousins, fourth cousins, and figuring out who left that DNA at the crime scene. By inferring that identity, we're giving that information to law enforcement. And I want to make clear, because there are questions in our talk today for David, and I'm sure in our talk tomorrow, that we don't tell them this is your perpetrator. We say this person's profile, or one of these 2 or 3 people in this family left DNA at this crime scene, meaning that they then need to investigate. They need to contextualize that information. They knew in the Kohberger case that there was a white Elantra that was seen at the crime scene. Now they knew that there was a family in Pennsylvania that was identified. Could they look up a white Elantra that had a Pennsylvania plate or a Pennsylvania driver? Of course they could. And that's part of their investigation. I don't know the order of which the investigators actually investigated that case, but they were able to piece all those pieces together because we gave them the information that we gave them. And as they pieced all those puzzle pieces together, it became very clear that there was only one suspect that was possible of committing this crime.
Stacy, do you want other families like who are going through, I mean, do you think things need to change
Absolutely.
nationwide?
I don't know what the answer to that is. I mean, we're just getting started on this, but even if you don't know anything, but that Othram was involved in identifying a perpetrator, it's a comforting piece of information. The rest of it takes all of law enforcement as well, right? I mean, it still takes this entire case. So, but there.
All right, so I want to stop it there. I'll link the entire interview in the description here. But Ed, she talked about thousands of markers. She talked about the certainty of one perpetrator and one perpetrator only, but also threw it back to the law enforcement investigators. What Othram Labs does is unbelievable. It's brilliant. It's solving cold cases, helping to solve cold cases. But with the information that they provide, it's not a slam dunk. You still have to go out and do
there's a lot of legwork that has to be done, especially if they said, okay, we have a possible several family members that could have deposited this DNA. So now you got to go out and interview these people. You got to get their stories and their alibis and where they were at the time of the suspected incident. And so you have to run that all to ground. And then you'll see, you can try to get consensual DNA samples from these individuals that were selected from the databases based upon the genetic profile they developed. And if they don't want to give you consensual DNA, if you have probable cause, then you can ask a judge for a warrant to take it forcibly from them, or you try to get it surreptitiously, and you follow them around until they discard something in a public trash receptacle, like the Long Island serial killer. Okay,
and I love that word, surreptitiously. Going into the garbage as they did in Pennsylvania, and with Rex Sherman, he threw out a pizza crust that he ate. He didn't eat the rest of it. He left a little bit of the crust, which is the best part, in my opinion, or one of the best parts. He left that crust, and he discarded it in a public trash can outside of his office.
And that's one of the other things we call it, discarded DNA. Once you've discarded it into an exterior trash receptacle, you no longer have an expectation to a right of privacy.
Correct.
Okay.
S-Dub said, Ed, what I have not heard, I'm going to highlight the comment again. Thank you for that. What I have not heard is if they can tell if it's a male or female. I think they were pretty clear about that. It was a male profile.
Yeah, they said single source male. Okay. Do you have the interview with her and David, the doctor and David?
Her husband?
From Orton's lab?
Yeah, her husband, David.
Yeah, because that's where they really get into those little nitty gritty areas that we were arguing with people on our shows, that it's not junk science. It's not, they didn't have just minuscule amounts of genetic material.
I do. I have it. It's a part 1 and a part 2. But
it
was part 2?
I think so.
Are you sure?
No. Because you sent me like 100 videos to look at.
I sent you 3, Ed.
Yeah. All right.
Stop it with that, Ed. So it's her in part 1 and 2 is just only her talking. So it's not her and the husband.
No, it was her and the husband. So it was the
DNA that is on here is.
All right, give me a second. Ed, scan the chat.
Yeah, I'm scanning the chat. Yeah.
There it is. Ed Wallace Show right there.
That's right. In God we trust, all others we polygraph. So, yeah, I was like, we haven't been on in a while, and I was like, wow, I think Ron is going through YouTube rehab. I was like shocked that we hadn't put on a show that long, but Ron was kind of a hurting puppy there with the loss of his dog, and then immediately followed by his parrot. So I felt for him. Anyhow. While Ron was doing that, he was talking in the last show that we did that he was looking to adopt a parrot. I didn't know that they did that kind of things with parrots, but I attempted to adopt a 3-month-old puppy German Shepherd. But I guess it was the dog was in a rescue in Louisiana, and they gave it to another family. I was a little bummed out about that. The puppy was so cute.
All right, Ed. So I don't see where the interview was with both the husband and wife, but I'm going to I sent you 3 videos. I already did one.
Hold on. You're going to let me look.
Yeah. So look and find it.
Okay, tough guy.
I'm gonna queue up. It was 1 and 2. They're from Arizona.
Normally, we take you behind the scenes of a true crime case.
Let's play this while we're sitting here and Ed's looking down with his phone.
You'll find the most powerful DNA lab in the world, solving the biggest cold cases in the nation, and we're getting unparalleled access.
Ed.
Yo.
Yeah. Bless you.
Thank you.
Breathing down my neck.
Oh.
Hyde for the first time.
And I'm going to smack you so hard, hair is going to regrow on your head.
Like reinventing an entire field.
This is Othram.
Is anybody else in the world doing what Othram's doing?
Not that I know of. Not to this extent. I think we're going to actually see cold cases converge to extinction. I mean, David told me in 2018, end of 2018, I'm going to build a forensic lab of the future, and I honestly thought he might have lost his mind. Who is going to give you evidence?
It was from CrimeCon, Ron.
David.
Kristen and David Middleman have a medical background and realized they could use their knowledge and expertise for forensic-grade genome sequencing. And that's what changed everything when it came to DNA identification. Just outside Houston, in the Woodlands, you'll find their lab, now sought after by law enforcement agencies across the world.
We've gone from people giving us the most impossible case to work, because this sounded like crazy science, a few years ago, to people actually giving us their entire backlog of cases.
Look at the private chat, Ed.
Othram's work is now in headline after headline, but I wanted to go inside the lab to learn how this works. This is the definition of high tech, and the whole process is done under one roof, starting here.
This is our forensic lab here at Othram. There's a vestibule where they'll get dressed up, suited up from head to toe. So when they're working with this evidence.
And I'm sure you're happy to see and hear this.
The PPE, yes.
Head to toe, so no contamination is done.
Yes, the sterile work environment.
Step 1, DNA extraction.
Starts here with DNA extraction. As they move down, they cannot come back. They have to go home and shower for the day.
Step 2, the feasibility room.
We assess the properties of that DNA from that crime scene, and we decide on whether or not we're certain that we can actually build a DNA profile.
If not,
Othram Labs is in the Woodlands, north of Houston in Texas, ladies and gentlemen.
They'll put it on a hold shelf and work to advance their own technology before trying it. Step 3, and one of the coolest parts.
This is our bone room. I think they're starting to work on a bone right now.
New evidence had just arrived that morning. The lab tech pulled out a femur right in front of us.
Now they're going to extract the DNA from that piece of bone.
They take pictures of everything.
But these are all in case this ever goes to court. So she's documenting the whole process.
Step 4.
Where are we at here?
This is our library prep room. And now we're going to get the best pictures we can from that DNA that came from that crime scene.
DNA is transferred across the lab through a tiny door.
We'll pass it through that little silver door. So,
Ed, how impressive is this lab? I mean, they not only worked on the Bryan Kohberger murder case, but they worked on Rex Heuermann. This involves 7 murders with the Long Island serial killer and countless others. I mean, they've helped to solve hundreds of thousands of cases. But how impressive is this state-of-the-art lab?
Oh no, it's awesome. And it's like I said, it's a private company. It's not a lab funded by a city crime lab or a federal crime lab. So this is a private lab doing this great work here. It's awesome. I love it. I love the entrepreneur idea of it. I love the services they provide. I love the research and development that they do.
Yeah, this is amazing. When I saw this video and it only had 755 views, I was shocked because this is such great. If you're a science junkie or a true crime junkie and you're into forensics and all this stuff, this is how it's supposed to be done. And again, this stuff costs money, but I feel like our federal government, and I think Texas, the state of Texas, is trying to fund Othram labs, but I think the federal government should step in and fund this type of setup, because not only is it a large state-of-the-art facility, this is being done the right way. I picture, when I see this video and I look at this, I picture you, Ed Wallace, there with the PPE, not with the bag on your head, but with the PPE and your professional, gear, doing science. And this 8-minute video, and there's a second one after this that's shorter, but I really feel like this is promising to stop criminals dead in their tracks. So Kristen Middleman said you can't stop crime from happening, but you certainly can stop someone from repeating, like, murdering one time and then going out and murdering more, or raping one time and going out, so this lab is going to be the key to success in lowering the crime rate across the country.
Because just think about this, folks. If you get a genetic profile and there's nobody in CODIS to match it to, because the perp was never arrested and had a DNA sample uploaded into CODIS, was never convicted and uploaded into CODIS, was never paroled and so forth. So then all you have is an unknown, and then you can check, the unknown versus unknown in the database there at CODIS too, and to see if this person had committed crimes anywhere else in the nation. Okay, and nothing matched. So now you have nothing. So what is your choice here? What do you do with this information? Okay, let's see if we can find in these private genetic databases a family member that, so we can get a lead that can point us in a direction towards the possible suspect. That's the beauty of familial DNA.
Yeah, amen to that. And EV363, thank you for the super chat. I'm going to put it on the screen if I can find it again. Oh, there it is. Thank you, EV333, mom of the history chick. Check her out on Instagram. She sends a 10 and says, DNA has definitely revolutionized the criminal justice system, not only solving current and cold cases, but exonerating the innocent. Yes, that's a whole other thing to talk about. But she says, thank God for science. Amen to that.
Science.
Yes.
Step 4.
Where are we at here?
This is our library prep room. And now we're going to get the best pictures we can from that DNA that came from that crime scene.
DNA is transferred across the lab through a tiny door.
We'll pass it through that little silver door.
So it literally goes through that door.
It literally goes through the door. And people don't move, because once they move, like I told you, it's unidirectional. They'll have to go home, shower, and come back.
So they're basically stuck.
What did she just say, Ed? Did you hear what she just said?
Yeah.
Let's
go to the videotape.
I would make showers inside that facility so they didn't have to go home. It's less time missed from work.
Directional, they'll have to go home, shower, and come back.
So it goes through that door.
It literally goes through the door, and people don't move because once they move, like I told you, it's unidirectional. They'll have to go home, shower, and come back.
So they're basically stuck in one room at a time until they fully
ready, committed to go to the next place.
The last step of the forensic side, the DNA sequencer.
That is one of the most powerful sequences on earth. It's taken the most powerful genomics techniques and applied them to forensics for the very, very first time. The blue is it's running. There's a cycle going right now. It's sequencing, and the green is it's pending the sequence.
That's where the next phase comes into play with Carla Davis, their chief genetic genealogist.
I got into genetic genealogy in 2016 when I was searching for my biological father.
She took a DNA test and found a third cousin match.
DNA is what brought him to life. Unfortunately, he's deceased, but that is what gave me the answers. After I identified my biological father, I was hooked.
Now, Davis is the key to the next part of solving these cold cases after the DNA is sequenced.
Once it's uploaded, then it comes to my department, and that's when the genealogists, they begin work on the case. We use DNA to discover the ancestors of the person that we're trying to identify.
They use 3 ancestry databases: GEDmatch, Family Tree, and their own, DNA Solves.
I work to identify all the siblings. The parent of match number 1 is actually a half sibling to this set of children.
She showed us the visual process of trying to find a familial match. Sometimes a distant match, even a 6th cousin, has cracked a case.
That was the one key match to pull the case together.
So it can be that crazy.
It can be that crazy.
And not all cases take the same amount of time to solve.
So the shortest time was about 2 hours.
And what's the longest you've dealt with?
We have a case going on a year.
Davis then gives the match to the law enforcement agency investigating the case as a lead. And it's up to them to confirm the identity Davis and her team have found of either a victim or a suspect. Othram has one shot to get this all right.
The DNA that is on here is put on a slide. So it's fixed on a slide. It's just liquid. And then that's consumed. That's why this test is a destructive process.
All the work is documented and tracked from beginning to end.
Does that make it much more likely to be admissible because you can show that chain of custody?
That's exactly right.
In 2019, Othram made 5 identifications total. Now, in 2023, they've made more than 1,200 identifications, sometimes 5 in a day.
There are perpetrators out there that have been arrested or are in trial right now that are not able to harm the next victim.
All of a sudden, what they do behind the scenes is launched into the public spotlight. And then the emotional journey begins.
That's the purpose. Can you give someone their name back? Can you piece them back to their story, to what happened to them, and give their family the answers they need to move on?
This is unbelievable technology. I can watch this all night. But Ed, she said a lot of good stuff there in that video. But what were you trying? I know you said it was a CrimeCon interview. I've yet to see that one with Dave, her husband. But again, if we could find it, I'll link it in the description. If you send me a link to it, I'll look at it. But I definitely didn't share it with you.
Well, I saw it on my own.
Yeah. Okay, great. So
I love the science. This is why this to me is freaking awesome, right? The powerful puzzle solving genetic materials. That's what it is. It's a puzzle. We're solving this puzzle using science and genetics. Okay, and the findings are the findings. They don't lie. Okay, you're not manipulating anything to change genetic sequencing from from one person's DNA to somebody else's DNA. Okay, which I've seen that argument made in a high-profile court case where the defense attorney tried to say that the material was stored improperly in the trunk of a vehicle, and the heat of that the heat that it was exposed to degraded the genetic material so that it went from one innocent person's DNA to the guilty party's DNA. It doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't just morph into that. She did say something that was interesting as well, is that you got one shot at this because the process that they use takes up all the sample.
It consumes it, yeah. So
Right.
it's done. When they finish the process, there's no more material left to test.
Right. And that was an argument that we heard in the Rex Sherman case. And because they're the lab that is working on the case, his defense attorney was saying this exact thing, is that all of the DNA is going to be used up and we're not going to be able to refute it. But the process is so definitive that, you know, like you said, in all of the courts around the country, might not have been used in New York, and they just got that victory. The judge said, we're going to use it. The Rex Sherman's attorney tried to get it thrown out, and they said, no, we're going to use this process. One shot, and you got to do it right. Like you said, it's not the same, but you said with crime scene, garbage in, garbage out. These people aren't doing anything garbage. This is a top-notch facility, and I highly recommend, if you ever want to contribute or donate to them, they have a website. I'm going to pull it up. But there was another thing. I just only want to play a little bit of it, and we'll segue out. We'll take some questions. This was part 2 because they mentioned some of the cases that we've covered.
The bones, we had sent them.
Othram Labs was able to obtain a DNA profile.
The technology is starting to spread like wildfire.
Seeing the lab itself is astounding, but it's what happens after the lab work is done at Othram that brings purpose to Dr. Kristen Middleman.
These are stories that they're not fictional, they're real.
In a matter of several years, they've gone from being a subject of skepticism to now working the most notable cases, like the Gilgo Beach murders and suspect Rex Heuermann.
We help with the Long Island serial killer. That's a big buzz right now as the trial goes on. A few years ago, when Othram started, this technology would have never been used for these types of cases, especially these contemporary investigations.
But Othram proved their technology worked, solving some of the most gripping cold cases in the United States, like Arizona's Little Miss Nobody.
Little Miss Nobody is a case where the extreme heat affected the DNA in those bones.
A little girl buried in a shallow grave in the desert in 1960, with remains nobody could build a DNA profile from, until Othram did, identifying her in 2022 as 4-year-old Sharon Lee Gallegos from New Mexico, who was kidnapped from her front yard.
Little Miss Nobody had no hope of getting her case solved as Little Miss Nobody. And no one should ever be Little Miss Nobody, or any of these Jane Doe or John Doe names that are out there, right?
And it's these cases and these kinds of victims where Othram has not only uncovered answers, but details so sinister that have been schemed and hidden for decades.
I think she was known as Beth Doe. We identified her as Evelyn Cologne. She was a young girl, pregnant, chopped into pieces and thrown at the bottom of a lake in suitcases. Law enforcement said, well, she's not even missing. They contacted her family and they said, are you missing someone? And they said, no. And they said, well, can you account for Evelyn? And they said, yeah, she sends us letters. She just had a baby. She's living, in the state. They were like, have you seen her? And the answer was no. The perpetrator was sending letters home. The perpetrator was actually a taxi cab driver in the New York area, and now he's in court for this crime.
That wasn't the only case of deception that Othram's work brought to light.
We worked the Opelika Jane Doe case out of Alabama. The skeleton was between 3 and 6 years old when she was found. She was brutally abused, and bones were broken at different times, over 15 fractures. She was under a riverbed, so the DNA was horrible. She was malnourished. She had no teeth.
Incredibly, they were able to build a DNA profile and identified her remains as Amori Wiggins.
And first it led to the father, who said, oh no, I don't have a child. I don't know anything about this.
So they used genealogy to find Amori's mother.
She had lost custody of her daughter. She was 19. He was much older. He was Navy. He was married. This was a child out of wedlock. The court thought that the child was safer with him. She was still paying child support to the father because she thought her daughter was still alive.
A police investigation found the unthinkable about the man who claimed he didn't have a daughter.
He brutally beat that child and killed her and continued to collect child support for 11 years after that. He confessed to murder. As a mother, that case got to me in a way that I can't describe.
This is just amazing work, and this goes on and on and on and on. So the work that Othram Labs is doing is invaluable. I personally will make a donation to them after the show is over on behalf of all of us, because the work that they're doing is just so important. And look at what they're doing. So if you donate $5 to them or $1, every bit counts, and it's going to giving a name to the nameless, a face to the faceless, to solving cases from the 60s. I mean, again, all you have to do is go back and watch what they're putting out. And this is a great, great organization. Ed, I'm going to ask if you don't mind maybe to reach out to this lab. I know if they had a New York City or a New York area location, Ed would be working there. I guarantee that. Or he'd try to get a job there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to see if maybe you could reach out to either Kristen or Dave, and see if we can get them to come on and talk about I want to promote the work that they're doing, and I want maybe to get them to come on and tell us some of the great work that they're doing.
Sounds like a plan.
So for those of you who are watching on the replay, we want to tell you that we love and cherish our replay viewers. We thank you for your super chats, the super thanks after the shows are over, the buy me cups of coffee. Ed and I stay caffeinated with that. The Patreon supporters, the channel members, the moderators, the folks who go and subscribe and share our videos. We love you. We do not take any of your time for granted, because time is valuable and you can never get it back. So spending time with Ed and I, we are so indebted to you guys, and we appreciate you. September 11th is just around the corner. We're going to kind of go silent. We got a lot going on. I find out some of my cancer screens, the results of them. Amazing Sergeant Ant sent me this card today. It's a September 11th card, and that's her. This is what she does every year. I get one of these every year. There's a couple of them behind me. I want to say thank you to everyone who's reached out and sent their well wishes to me on the loss of Popeye. And this is an empty room now, but I'm going to make the best of it. And I'm going to spruce it up a little bit. And if I get another bird and adopt another parrot, he'll be right here. I'm not getting rid of the cage. It's still here. Ed, your thoughts on Othram Labs and the work that we just highlighted here?
They're doing God's work. They're helping law enforcement. We have to educate judges and states on the use of familial DNA and, forensic genealogy, and make it more prevalent throughout the nation as a crime-fighting tool to help us get leads on suspects with no profiles in CODIS. So this is awesome. I'm loving every minute of it, and kudos to them, and will definitely support them with some money.
Absolutely. And Joey in the chat, Joey Lupp says, maybe I missed it, but what is Othram Labs doing that other labs are not doing? Is it their sequencer machine? Here's the website. Go over and check out their mission, check out what you can do to help, look at the research and technology, look at their casework, and just go to Othram.com or watch the replay, and you'll learn more.
Yeah. The forensic labs do STR, short tandem repeats, for their genetic profiles to identify an individual, where Othram Labs is doing SNP, a single nucleotide polymorphism, which can identify multiple family members.
Yeah. 250,000 unsolved homicides. This is the number that grows yearly as more unsolved homicides are added, while only 50% are solved. So this is, I mean, you got to go to this website and really just take a moment to really read through it if you're interested in this stuff. Their technology is second to none, and it really it describes everything that they're doing and some of the cases that they can speak about. You go on there and look at all their stuff, but there is a button where you can go and donate to them. I highly recommend you doing that. Like I said, we're going to do that after the show is over. Ed, I know you have something always to say at the end of these shows, but before we do the end of this and we segue out, I want to just also put to the forefront the victims here in this case: Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xana Knodel, Ethan Chapin. These are the victims, and we always like to honor what the victims' families want. And some of you have asked Ed and I to go over the body cam footage and the inside of the rooms, and we opted not to do that. And I don't think that we will do it because the families have verbalized and vocalized that they don't want people making spectacles out of it. And really, there was nothing to glean from all of that that was worthy of us speaking about. So, and that's just our opinions. And I know you feel the same way as I do. If there was some ooh or ah moment or something that was missed or something that we could glean educational, then we would definitely talk about it. But we're not here this is not our jobs. This is not what we do to support our families. We're here to learn and to teach you guys and to learn about these cases and about all of the processes that go on. So that's really what we're here for. We're not here to ooh and ah and be like, oh, look at this. Ooh, is this blood? Ooh, is this a body? We're not doing that. We won't do it in this case. We won't do it in any others. So, we want to thank you. Ed, I know you always got something to say at the end, so let's roll it out.
Yeah, well, as you keep saying, we're coming up on the 24th anniversary of 9/11, and unfortunately, that day for me is hard because I lost my brother and I lost many brothers and sisters in blue. Good friend from kindergarten all the way through high school. I lost him that day in the attack. I have to go for World Trade Center Clinic MRI of my heart that morning, 7:30 in the morning. I have to go and get my heart MRI'd. So just make sure that I don't have sarcoidosis on my heart. So I'm doing that morning. And then after I do that, I've got to race, pick up my parents, and we're going to go to the cemetery and visit my brother. And, so that's a tough day. It's like, every time it comes around, it's, the emotions come back and it's like someone's pulling the scab off again, and they got to go through that whole healing process again. All right. But thank you. I'm glad I have folks like you to share these time with, and my family and friends. I get a lot of outpouring of love and support on that day, and I thank you all for that. Thank you for sharing your time with us here tonight. Thank you for your thoughts and prayers for these victims and for Ron and myself and the diseases and cancers and everything that we've been dealing with from 9/11. And hey, have a great night. Always stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen to that, brother. Again, like Ed was saying, I get the results of the cancer screen that I did on the 8th, which was just Monday, yesterday. And I find out, ironically, on September 11th, that we got the all clear. So I'm hoping for that. I know that I'll be okay, and I know you'll be all right, Ed. So lots of love and support for everyone who's going through it. Again, Ed and I, we lost a lot of good friends. I lost my cousin down there in the World Trade Center, a local 3 electrician. He was only 30 years old with a newborn and a 2-year-old at home. So he, left his 2 boys that day, and it's just a tough one for all of us. So on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, I want to thank you for being here. We love you. We respect you. We thank you. And good night from New York. We'll see you soon.